One of the latest trends in technology is designing technology in a way that easily accommodates a user. This practice falls under various buzzwords, such as usability, human-computer interactions, user interfaces or UI, and user experience or UX. Usability is simply the combination of psychology and technology. When designers know the right questions to ask of their technology or website and consider the typical tasks a user will perform, they generally can make some good judgments as to what will make the user's task easier. How to perform informal usability testing is discussed in Steve Krug's book, Rocket Surgery Made Easy. However, it's nice to have some context behind how people make these decisions and what common practices are generally recommended. Most of the information in this video is geared towards usability in relation to websites, but many of the principles can be applied to other technologies as well. The first thing we need to consider when looking at usability are the two major components, and that is the humans who are using the technologies and the technologies themselves. If you look on the blue side, you'll see that technology can be described as precise, exact, and can punish the users for lapses of attention or deriving from the tightly prescribed procedures that the technology needs to properly use the data humans give them. While on the other side, humans are creative, constructive, exploratory, novel, loose, less precise, and can only hold about 5 to 7 items in short-term memory unless interrupted. It's exactly why if you write a list of groceries down and then you forget that list, you only remember a few of the items on the list unless you had repeated it over and over in your head. Odds are you're not going to remember everything on that list. Now, trying to take these humans, which are less precise and less apt to remember these little bits of information, and have them interface with technology, which doesn't do well with this loose way of acting, is completely unnatural. You need to design to ensure that the technology fulfills human needs while being understandable to the humans and useful. You need to consider that your design should be in correlation to how humans actually act and not how technology wants humans to act. The designer will not be able to be by the user's side to explain how their website works. Users are also annoyed when they access a website and are bombarded with pop-ups or modal windows giving them various instructions. Users will either forget the instructions or ignore them entirely. Therefore, it is important to structure and design the website and its controls in a way that is easily discoverable for the user. There are various principles that determine whether or not features are discoverable. The first component of discoverability we're going to discuss are affordances. Affordances are qualities of an object and how the object can be interacted with. For a very simplistic example, we'll look at a chair. A chair has a seat, and that seat affords you the ability to sit down. If we look at a more technology-related example, a mobile website has various buttons and areas that you can touch that will allow you to do various things. For example, if you pull up Google Maps, that app will afford you the ability to navigate back to your house. Signifiers communicate where the action should take place. Now this differs from an affordance, as the affordance is the thing that can happen. The signifier tells you how you can make it happen. Constraints are physical, cultural, semantic, and logical aspects that prevent certain incorrect actions. For example, when you're on a website, generally the color red signifies no, stop, or close. It often, in many cultures, is interpreted as a halt to actions or a danger or something to be very wary of. That's why often an X button in the corner of the screen that is colored red means to close and to end the processes that are happening. Therefore, users tend to avoid touching red indicators unless they mean to stop what they're doing. Mapping is the relationship between the control, action, and the intended result. To go back to the example of the home icon, meaning to go to the home screen, the control would be the icon itself. The action would be the user tapping the home icon, and the intended result would be that the user meant to go to the home page. Now, in a sequence like that, that mapping is very logical. It is almost intuitive, and many users don't even have to think about it. But when certain controls do not do what the user expected, that mapping is thrown off and it causes a lot of frustration. Signifiers, constraints, and mapping are all different features of feed forward. Feed forward answers questions on how to execute an action. So if the user is thinking, how do I get to the home page? Feed forward tells them how they should do it instead of them having to just guess. Feedback, it communicates the result of an action. For example, when the home button is pushed, the page loading indicates to the user that the action will cause a result. Too long of a delay in feedback means that the user may think that their action was not effective, and the feedback only displaying for a short period of time may make the user think that they didn't do or that the action wasn't completed properly. Therefore, they have to figure out how to fix that problem or how to execute the action again. Another major component of discoverability are conceptual models. Conceptual models are simplified explanations of how some things work, and they're created from system images. System images are the combination of information available and are created from experiences, perceived structures, online research, manuals, and other sources. The action cycle model helps explain how a user makes decisions to perform the actions that they do. The action cycle can begin at either two ends, at the goal or at the world. If you start at the goal, that means that the actions they are taking are driven by goal-driven behaviors. Goal-driven behaviors, for instance, could be a teacher gives an assignment that says research the stages of the water cycle. So then the student would go out, decide how they wanted to approach their research, discover the specific questions they have, perform the research, and the world section would be going out to the library or researching it on Google. And then once they have those results, they perceive them, interpret the information, and compare to what they originally were intended to do. If there's data-driven behavior, that means you started off at the world. You were, in this example, the student could have been researching away and then run into a problem while they were out in the world, and then they decide that they need to figure out why this problem exists and how to fix it quickly so you can get back to what you're originally doing. Now, users may go through the whole action cycle when they have a goal or incurred a problem in the world that they need to solve, but oftentimes they will only use certain components of the action cycle. They won't complete the full cycle. When a user approaches an interface, they process what they are perceiving at various different cognitive levels. The most basic level is the visceral level. It is the lizard brain. It judges quickly and automatically. It gives you those quick responses like when you smell something coming out of a bakery. If it was baked properly, then you'll automatically think, that smells delicious, what is it? If it smells like it burnt, you'll judge quickly, oh, something went wrong, that's unpleasant. The visceral level simply assesses the situation and gives you a gut reaction. It assigns no blame or no credit. The behavioral level consists of learned skills triggered by situations. The brain maps appropriate patterns to deal with those situations that they incur. These actions are associated with a particular expectation. For instance, if they complete this task, then they will get a particular result. And proper feedback reassures that this is the correct action. The most complex level is the reflective level. The reflective level requires conscious cognition. where reason and decision making takes place. You have to really think about things that go on the reflexive level. When good design mixes all three levels, the combination can lead to flow. Users in the flow state are completely immersed and lose track of time and their outside environment. Now, this doesn't just mean the visceral level where things look pretty or are appealing to the senses, and with a combination of the behavioral level where the user is already very comfortable with the actions that they need to take place. It has to be engaging and challenging enough to keep the user interested without getting too challenging. With this background on how a user makes decisions and generally interacts with a technology, it's important to pull some practical usability tips. First, we'll discuss design. When you're designing your technology or website, don't make the users remember too much. Remember, users at their best can only remember about 5 to 7 things, and that's if they've been focusing on that nonstop. Put the knowledge required to operate your website out on the interface. Make it very clear and follow existing conventions if you're not exactly sure how to convey things best to your user. When it comes to content, make the text scannable and worth reading. Users are not on the web to read a novel. Users are there to find the information that they find valuable, extract it, and then apply it in some way. When anticipating a user's actions, assume the user will do the least amount of work possible. Assume that their minds are wandering often, so don't make paying crucial attention important. Users will give a maximum of 7 to 10 minutes of their undivided attention if you're lucky. So that's why it's also important to remember to not make the users remember. The actions and the design and the content are all very tied in to making sure that the user doesn't forget or miss vital information. Simplify stressful situations for users. If there's a chance that the user may be distressed by anything that they're doing, for example, dealing with money or personal information, try to make these processes as simple as possible. One way to do that is making things obvious. If they're not obvious, at least make it self-explanatory or provide the information that they need close by. Also, make actions easy to undo. Sometimes a user may just get into a habit of click, 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 and then click the wrong thing. So if they feel confident that they can undo their actions, they'll be less scared and less intimidated by doing something wrong. In the next video, we'll be able to see how many of these tips are applied to a small business website and how these small considerations can make a big difference when a user approaches a website.